A big week for the Georgia Bulldogs up in Indianapolis, and their head coach becoming a real big cheerleader for the Dogs last night, talking in a couple of tweets about how big of a deal it was for Indianapolis. It's an important place now, Lucas Oil Field for Kirby. It's the only place he's ever won the national championship. It's a special place for him. It's far too cold, frankly, to ever hold an event like that there again, but that's my view of it. But it happened, and Georgia won the national championship over Alabama. And then they returned this past week for the NFL Combine, and Georgia players really showed out. This is what Kirby said Saturday night. It's a great week to be a dog. I'm proud of these young men, the work they've put in, and the way they've presented themselves at the NFL Combine. Indianapolis has been good to this elite group of guys. Go Dogs! So I'm just, and remembering our time in Indianapolis. This is, of course, an image of Kirby on the back of the cover. Um, just an exceptional period of time there up in Indianapolis. Far too cold, again, to ever hold that event again. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION. It's down below. And there were a lot of question marks coming into that game about Georgia and Kirby, and could they do that? Could they do it? Would they do it? They were a 3-point favorite by the time the thing started. Let me read to you just a section here of the book. The plan to beat Alabama was complex and multi-pronged, but it boiled down to two basic strategies for Kirby Smart in Georgia. The Dogs wanted to be certain they could at least slow down Alabama's offense before any onslaught started. Georgia knew or thought Alabama would score. They just didn't want it to be at breakneck pace. Secondly, the Dogs' signal caller would have to avoid mistakes that were game-changing. Alabama scored 5 touchdowns in the SEC championship game. All but one had come on drives shorter than 2 minutes. Stetson Bennett threw 5 interceptions in 2 games against Alabama. Both problems combined to make Georgia fans overwhelmingly pessimistic. But Las Vegas didn't see it the same way as fussy Georgia supporters. Before the semifinal games on New Year's Eve, Georgia was listed as a 1-point favorite to beat the Tide, but after the rematch was set, Georgia had moved to 3-point favorites. And it's I do actually have a ton of memories from not just Lucas Oil Field, but from the moment when we knew the Orange Bowl was done, which was halftime, I guess. But in packing everything up from Miami, we as Dog Post had to scramble to figure out. We had our plan ready to get to Indianapolis and what we were going to do and all that stuff. And the thing to remember about that time was that it was all in front of Georgia, and it was all going to happen at Lucas Field in Indianapolis, one of the most bizarre places to have a national championship game. The day before the game, if you had a credential, you could go into the facility, which was a first that I'd seen. But Georgia was having practice at the time that we were in the building. Couldn't see anything. All of the you could see something if you wanted to get kicked out. You'd have to go look through the window. It was a whole thing. But what we were worried about was the logistical stuff for the next day. And there were so many Georgia fans there before the game, during the game, after the game, that Lucas Oil really became Sanford Stadium North. There were plenty of Alabama people at the game, don't get me wrong, but it was a heavily partisan Georgia crowd. And the players on the field after the game, I don't think it occurred to them that a heavy percentage of them would have to come back to that building, and it would matter so much for their professional uh, future. Indianapolis and the NFL Combine have changed a lot in the last 5 years. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't go on anymore that used to. There's things have kind of juggled around a little bit, but the um, the structure of Lucas Oil, it's a really big crawling building that is connected to a convention center, and that's where the guys did all of their media obligations before they went to do all the stuff on the field. But it's been an unbelievable week for those guys. I mean, you look at Jordan, Trayvon, Devontae. I don't I don't see how they've moved backwards. It's hard to move up. It's hard to move up in the NFL draft. But I don't think any of them have moved backwards. I think Jordan solidified his position. I think Trayvon for sure is a first round guy now. I mean, like, I don't think there was much, to me, there wasn't a lot of question about that coming into the thing, but just the way that he's, performed. Um, but it will always be a roundabout, weird, special place for Georgia, Lucas Oil Field. A place that has windows that open and close. Did you know that? I'd never have heard of that, but apparently it's a thing there. Um, they weren't opening the doors and windows for that night. It was that I'm telling you, it was 9 degrees when we were in Indianapolis. It was a miserable experience in terms of that whole thing. But a lot of people, when they go back when it's not that cold, have a great time there. Problem is, it was that cold when we were there. But the amount of memories that were made that night in Indianapolis were a big deal. And now, Georgia's players, Channing Tindall with the largest vertical, at least at the time when he made it, for any player that had gone through the combine. There's just been so much success for the Dogs up there that they really have stamped themselves as they are elite. I mean, there's no better team than there was Georgia this past season. And it certainly doesn't seem like there's a crop of professional prospects that are better than these guys are right now. Again, you're talking about Nakobe Dean, Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, Trayvon Walker, Channing Tindall, Kendrick is up there. Or is Kendrick up there? I don't know if he's up there, but he's in this class. Zamir, James Cook. I mean, the run from Zamir was, you know, probably a money making run. I mean that would be my guess. And of course, George Pickens had a good time. Everybody's eyes were opened more by what people saw in Indianapolis from this group of Georgia players. Now, when you hear me talk about no, Georgia should win the national championship, that's the reason why. Now, I'm not suggesting it's easy. It's not easy. I mean, Georgia should win the national championship. Alabama should win the national championship. They have the players. It's all there. And you know, these are players that are special, they're gifted, and then they get developed along the way. That's the thing. When you look at what Jordan Davis did from the time he got to Georgia to the time he left, you can't talk about. I mean, obviously he's been developed. Devontae Wyatt is case number one, if Jordan isn't, of the development prowess of this program. So while you are clicking on the link to get DAWGSTRUCTION, and please don't miss out because the first run is done. I mean, those have been sent out. You're gonna miss out. It's gonna take longer to get them. So order now so that you can get on this second run that I've got of books. And don't miss out. But those guys have been developed along the way. And Devontae and Jordan are great examples. But high level guys were developed too. And George Pickens getting back from his injury is a great example of development. It just was behind the scenes the whole time. It's been a great run in Indianapolis. Make sure you're picking out DAWGSTRUCTION down below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the website.